And now, the best 60-ish seconds of your week. And what a week it has been. All week we had the Amy Coney Barrett hearings going on before the Senate Judiciary Committee, and who can assail the job that she did there? The money shot, of course, was her holding up that blank sheet of paper telling Senator Cornyn, these are the notes from which I'm testifying. And her uncanny ability to talk about cases that are 20, 30, 100 years old and to discuss the holding and the rationale and even the dicta in those cases was phenomenal. It impressed even the most ardent opponents on that committee. But what was more compelling than her intellect and her legal abilities was the human quality of this woman. And Laura Walk, the former student of Judge Barrett's who is blind, had the testimony of the whole session in my judgment. Incredibly compelling emotionally when she said that Judge Barrett's brilliance is surpassed only by her compassion. That said it all. And yet we had Democrats asking her in front of her children if she was a sex predator, and another asking her, a woman who has adopted black children, whether or not she'd be willing to disavow white supremacy. That unfortunately was what the hearing devolved into. Political speeches from the Democrats rather than any sort of concentrated effort to ask serious questions of Judge Barrett. Punctuated, I think, by Senator Kennedy's tongue-in-cheek questions about what she felt about puppies. But we do know this, I believe, that Judge Barrett is going to be confirmed. And let me say this, 20 years from now, I really believe that Judge Amy Coney Barrett is going to be held in the pantheon of the highest levels of regard of Supreme Court justices through the years. I think she'll rank up with Robert Jackson and others, who we reference time after time as the great legal thinkers of our day. And I'll make another prediction. I'll bet you Laura Walk isn't too far behind. But ultimately, what was fascinating about that whole charade this week was the fact that the Democrats were accusing Judge Coney Barrett of taking her own views into the court. And yet what they constantly were pounding away at was that they wanted her to take their political views and infuse them into the law. You saw a great and clear distinction between the two schools of thought, the originalists, constructionalists, textualists of Amy Coney Barrett and the activists of the other side. And we know which one's going to prevail this time around, and that really is for the good of the country. And of course, the aftermath of those hearings was the grudging acknowledgement on the part of the Democrats that Amy Coney Barrett is going to get confirmed. But in the final hours of the hearing and immediately thereafter, you saw some very interesting things. First of all, Dick Durbin, who's as tough as they come, in effect apologizing to Judge Barrett for some of the things that were said in front of her children and hoping that there was no real hurt that was involved. But what was really interesting was the hug that Dianne Feinstein gave to Judiciary Chairman Lindsey Graham. A very, very nice gesture that the left immediately seized upon to call for her removal as the minority chair, the ranking member of the Senate Judiciary Committee. I mean, you can't make this stuff up. Demand Justice, a group that not only wants court backing, but a whole lot of other stuff, thinks that Senator Feinstein should step down because she hugged Lindsey Graham. And this week we got the real October surprise in my judgment, the Biden bombshell. The New York Post putting out emails that really go to the heart of the corruption or alleged corruption of the Biden family. We're going to see a lot more of this because Twitter and Facebook were blocking those things. They're now beginning to soften up that position as subpoenas begin to fly, and testimony will be coming up next week. This is going to be a huge story coming into November 3rd. Mark it down, watch it closely. You're not going to want to miss it. And this week we'll have the final debate of the 2020 season. That follows up this week's quote-unquote town hall meetings, which really showcased how bad the media has gotten. NBC has a quote-unquote journalist trotted out. She, by the way, happens to be married to Al Gore's former chief of staff. And she's a protagonist to the president, acting as though she's running against him, debating him in effect rather than asking the questions. And President Trump performed magnificently, getting some of the best marks and grades that he's gotten throughout the campaign for that encounter. But over on ABC, George Stephanopoulos is lobbing softballs at Joe Biden, not even asking about these emails, which I think are going to be the centerpiece of the campaign for the last 2 weeks, and letting him off the hook on issues like court packing and the ban on fracking. So now we go to the great debate and the final one. Whether or not Steve Scully's there remains to be seen. By the way, another Biden staffer, though in fairness, I've known Steve for many years, and I do think that he tries his very best to be impartial and fair. C-SPAN requires that. But I think we're going to get an opportunity to see Joe Biden once and for all not allowed to be hiding Biden. I mean, forget about Sleepy Joe. He's been hiding behind issues, and I think that the time has come when he'll no longer be able to do that. And finally, on a sadder note, some losses this week. Most notably, Joe Morgan of the Big Red Machine, later of Philly, one of the great people of his sport. And you know, you think about it, we also lost Whitey Ford since we last talked. And so many of the Hall of Fame have departed us in recent days. Tom Seaver, Whitey Ford, Don Larson, may they all rest in peace. But one other notable loss this week as well. Roberta McCain, the mother of U.S. Senator and presidential candidate John McCain, the wife of a 4-star admiral, whose father was also, by the way, a 4-star admiral. She passed away at the ripe young age of 108. Her twin sister passed away several years ago, having almost reached her 99th birthday. Now they're reunited, and may they all rest in peace, because for now, that is the best 60-ish seconds of your week.